this time last year, Jim Womack and I, we spent 4 hours on a bus going backwards and forwards to the Burniston, the Toyota plant at Burniston. And we just had the summit, and I was feeling pretty optimistic, really, about what we'd just done. And whilst recognising, really, that we'd a few challenges to face. We'd had the injection of a Toyota tour. It's kind of like it's like a sugar rush, isn't it, for a lean thinker, a Toyota tour? You know, you kind of it heightens your senses to what can be done, the simplicity, the alignment, the synchronicity, and the engagement. And we talked about LEA's experiments to build self-reliance. And I kind of argue that self-reliance is really the target condition that all of us should be trying to aim for. Otherwise, our efforts are really minor improvements without much chance of sustainability. And to that end, we need a number of set-based activities, really, to articulate and to help build self-reliance. And at LEA, we've done a number of experiments. Dave just mentioned the online learning platform. But on the bus on the way back, Jim and I agreed that we needed to do a few more alternative experiments. And what we said was that we agreed that the LEA team should try and write a book that describes the process of lean practice, hence the title of the talk, almost like a companion to lean thinking, which described the principles. So there's a draft. We're not very good at doing writing, really. You know, we're not Dan and Jim, but there's a draft. There's a working title, and many of the graphics are signed off. And we're in the grind of doing the writing. But what do I mean by lean practice? So practice is repetition. Repetition of an activity in order to achieve mastery or fluency. Practice is the act of doing something. So when I think about practice, I often think of music, hence the picture of the little lad playing the cornet. But it's got numerous applications. So, for example, playing sport, learning a language, drawing, writing, and even lean. In music, practice is, it has many facets. You've got in the cornet practice to improve range. And that's really to hit both high notes and low notes. Then there's the practice to improve intonation. Intonation is the accuracy of pitch, how well a musician or an instrument is basically playing in tune. And it's about hitting the correct notes and the intervals. So being out of tune means the tone might be slightly higher, sharper, or slightly lower, flatter than it should be. And then there's the practice to improve the coordination between your brain, so what you see, but also what you feel and you interpret in the music, and what's going on in your mouth, and what's happening with your hands, you know, as you play. And I don't know about you, but in a work context, I frequently need coordination between what's happening in my brain, in my mouth and my hands. So a short story to really illustrate the importance of practice. I started to learn the cornet when I was 6 years old. And this picture is me at 10 years old. Full head of hair and all that, you know. And I don't play much these days because I don't prioritise the time to practice. And because I don't prioritise the time to practice, I can't play what I used to be able to play. And because I can't play what I used to be able to play, I don't play. Right? So that's a problem. It frustrates me not being able to do what I used to be able to do. And last year, I had the opportunity I was in a youth band for about 7 years, and I had the opportunity to have a reunion. And at this, I wanted to play at the reunion, so I had a few weeks to get fit enough to be able to play. Gee whiz. So I had to be able to play at the band practice during the day and play at the concert in the same evening. And as I started to play, I struggled to actually hit high notes. And as time was short, I thought, I'll Google what people are doing to hit high notes. And I found out there are hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube about hitting high notes. When I played as an adolescent, I just played. When you start doing this at 6 years old, you just play. You don't think about how you play. And it just became something that I did. But when I had to relearn, what I learned was that hitting high notes are more easily attained by adjusting the gap, reducing the gap between your tongue and the roof of your mouth. And as I practiced this activity, being aware of what I was practicing this piece on the distance, whilst thinking about the position of the mouthpiece on your lips. It's called the embouchure, for those that are interested in all this kind of thing. But obviously you're not, you're interested in lean, but it's got a point. So your embouchure, and then also adjusting the breathing that you're using. And I practiced purposefully. That was the point, was I practiced purposefully every day to solve that problem. And day by day, over this few weeks before this practice, I was then able to play all the notes. But to use the Eric Morecambe thing, not necessarily in the right order. Okay? But I did at least have a clear problem to solve. So, what's all that got to do with lean? Well, lean thinking is a set of principles. And the set of principles are about developing highly engaged people to continually solve problems to improve the flow of value to customers. And lean contains a set of practices, specific practices, and those are the working methods and innovations that managers use to improve the effectiveness of work systems, aligning purpose, process, and people. And we know that each of those practices can only be learned through doing, i.e., through practice. And time and again, we can point to the benefits that the lean approach gives, not just to an organisation, but to society, to customers, to team members, and to partners up and down the value stream. So what do we need to learn and what do we need to do to purposefully practice? Okay. So for over 10 years, we've researched this question and we've used the lean transformation framework first developed by John Shuck. The framework is a set of questions, not a set of answers, for people in organisations to apply lean thinking to their unique situation. The contention is, for effective change to take place, the 5 questions should be addressed. The questions relate to specific activities to define value, define the work, the capability, the management system, and the behaviours and the culture of an organisation. In addition, and fundamentally, there is a lean thinking point of view when answering each of these questions to your situation. To make the output from the framework actionable, you have to practice. You have to repeat the learning processes to achieve mastery and fluency. So not surprisingly, given that we are talking about lean, the first question relates to value. Does your organisation have a clear value-driven purpose that everyone can simply understand and articulate? So the NASA janitor wasn't just cleaning the floor, he was helping to put a man on the moon. Toyota aren't just making cars, they're providing mobility. Having defined value, we think about how that value flows to the customer and the activities involved. And these activities can be at different levels. The individual, the team, the department, the value stream, or between organisations. And of course, value rarely flows seamlessly to customers. We'll have problems, which we should see as opportunities, not something to hide. And we need problem solving at every level, aligning the organisation to be working on the right problem priorities. It helps if problems are defined as gaps. Generally, we can see problems in terms of 4 main types. And the gaps as being caused, so gaps from standard, and created, trying to get to a new level of performance in line with an ultimate goal. What to practice? Learning processes to ensure value-driven purpose is clear and relevant. Processes to ensure alignment and contribution. Processes to develop problem-solving capability. In terms of the summit, you can learn more about a process for developing strategy. You can hear about Mark's book tomorrow. And then there's learning processes for developing problem solving. So Nick and Alicia from Swansea University, they're going to be talking about this. Brian Chilton from Technique FMC, Fernanda and Danilo from Crook. There are several different examples of this whole piece around problem solving. Our second question concerns the work. So how do we do and improve the work to help close the gaps that we identify in line with the value-driven purpose? And again, work is done at different levels, from individual and standardised work through the value stream and end-to-end flow. At each level, the work needs to be defined and designed with respect to meeting the takt time at the pull of the customer to compress the lead time. Wherever possible, the processes should be designed to not make and pass on bad work or defects, but to stop and call for help. With the work designed and defined, the next consideration is to seek to stabilise and then to improve. Stability first, improvement second. Standardising the work helps provide stability. And many of the lean tools can be used to help achieve that stability and further improvement. It depends upon the problem to solve. Waste, the Japanese call it muda, overburden, mori, and mora, unevenness, are the key principles to keep in mind when seeking to stabilise and improve the work. Recognising that there are 4 things that you can do with process steps. You can eliminate steps to eliminate waste. You can combine or rearrange steps for better sequence, and you can simplify steps. At any level, from the front lines to management, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the work easier. Less effort to get better results. So what to practice? Defining and designing work. That'd be a pretty good thing to practice. And improving work at every level. And there are learning processes and skills associated with each. Is the work at every level being improved? In terms of the summit, you can learn more about understanding and improving the work in a number of the sessions. But specifically, if you want to learn about this in a product development context, go to Josh's session. In a restaurant, so we got an example of a lean restaurant. Go to Oriel's session. There's a keynote and a breakout. If you want to learn about building in quality in Jidoka, attend Pierre and Hyan's session. And if you want to look at this in a healthcare context, the King's College Hospital are sharing, and in an admin and legal context, Stephen Heppelstall will be sharing what Waitmans are doing. Finally, if you want to look at the link between work and what AI can do, take a look at Mike Moore's session. So, having defined the work to be done, what capabilities do we need to do and improve the work to help solve the problems, to support the value-driven purpose? And we find it helpful to think about capability on 2 dimensions. Developing individual capabilities and developing organisational capabilities. And there are 4 skill development levels, from acquiring some basic knowledge, such as in a classroom or similar, to gaining some understanding by trying it out, then becoming capable by doing, many times to become experienced enough to be able to teach and coach others. Have the capabilities required to do and improve the work on the key processes been identified? at each level of the organisation. Leaders must practice teaching, some classroom teaching, but also the practice of doing and improving work. So practical practice. Using practical workshops to apply relevant tools to do and improve the work, coaching people on problem solving, learning and developing capability together to solve problems by involving and engaging everyone. It's not enough just to think at the individual capability level. We should look organisationally too. Do we have the right capabilities today and in the future to cope with technological change, to cope with political change? That's pretty topical, isn't it? To cope with economic change and so on. And are there gaps organisationally? Are our leaders equipped with the capabilities they need? And do we have learning processes in place to develop them so they're ready for their next challenge, both in their roles today and in the next role that we expect them to do? In any case, do we have a plan? A plan for every person and a plan for every role. So what to practice? Well, the methods used by leaders to develop capability at the individual and at the organisation level. And in terms of the summit, you can learn more about capability in a number of the sessions, but specifically Marion's there. Marion and Ewan, they're going to talk about this at Thales. Oliver Conger's going to talk about this at Rototherm, what they've been doing specifically as part of the Welsh Clusters programme, which I wanted our audience to become aware of, as it's a great piece of work that's taking place in partnership with the Welsh Government and Welsh companies, including direct involvement from the Toyota Lean Management Centre. So, next piece. What management system and behaviours are required to develop capabilities we need to do and improve the work to help solve the problem to support the value-driven purpose. And again, we find really useful to think about this in two dimensions. So there's a management system in terms of daily performance, and there's a management system in terms of improvement. Ideally, we want to combine the gains made from steady improvement in daily performance management with improvement that gives step change. Daily management's about having a system that's able to manage and maintain performance to the required standard. The analogy is to keep the trains running on time. But the analogy is to keep the trains running on time every time, and the process is based around plan, do, check, act, the scientific method. The practice required is to capture the performance data, understanding when it's out of standard. The information needs to be collated in regular performance review. Details such as frequency, the number of levels, and the rules for escalation depend on the process. They depend on the business context. Here the planning, the PDCA, takes place to measure the overall performance, whether you're winning or losing, and the actions to close the gaps are decided. The agreed actions are then done, the do part of PDCA, to close the gaps and get the performance back to standard. And then next we check to make sure that the process is back to standard. And then the final point is to then ask ourselves, what did we learn? The clock in the middle of the PDCA, that's to invoke speed, the frequency of review and reaction. The management system for improvement follows the same PDCA cycle, again starting with ACT. A plan's developed showing the improvement and how that's going to be made over time. The progress of that plan needs to be reviewed with, again, a cadence, frequency depending upon the process and the unique situation of the organisation. Improvement activities are conducted, maybe an improvement event, for example, and leaders, those red leapers, they support the team to make the improvements. The diamond in the middle of the PDCA represents that this is improvement connecting back to value-driven purpose. And to make the system effective, leaders must practice behaviours that make the system live. In particular, leaders need to go and see. They need to be present at the workplace in order to observe the processes and understand the facts from their team. Key behaviours to demonstrate: recognition, genuinely recognising people for good performance; teaching their people to advance their knowledge and understanding; coaching to develop capability of their people; and constructive feedback when undesirable behaviours are observed, constructively feeding back. Leaders need structure to be able to make sure that they go and see. And the method to do that is, we prefer to call it management routines, but lots in the lean community call it leader standard work. And we can debate an absolute number of the amount of time that you need to spend doing your leader standard work. But the goal is to spend an increasing amount of time using and practicing the leadership behaviours. So what to practice? Are the management systems in place? Spending enough time developing people using management routines and practicing desired behaviours to engage people. A number of sessions are going to discuss the management system and leadership behaviour required to support lean thinking. I know Simon Rowley from Toyota is going to talk about this. Mark's going to talk about this in terms of discussing these elements. Okay. So, final question. What basic thinking and mindset drives this change to support the management system and behaviours required to develop the capabilities we need to do and improve the work to help solve the problem to support the value-driven purpose? And this is really about what kind of culture exists today versus what kind of culture we need in the future. Culture is a function of the day-to-day activities and behaviours exhibited by people in an organisation. So what we do as individuals and as a collective. And we find it helpful to think about a target condition for a lean culture. One way to describe it would be highly engaged people continually solving problems to improve the flow of value to customers. To do this, there is underlying thinking. Examples include PDCA, embedded into the process and the thinking. To that end, activities are structured as experiments using the scientific method. Knowledge is shared across the organisation. And in addition, there are routines that can be used. So one good example is the questioning routine. 5 W's, 2 H. Why, what, where, when, who, how much. Such questioning ensures that activities are well defined, eliminating waste. As we solve organisational problems, more underlying thinking comes to light. Is your organisation cost plus? Or do you use the equation profit equals price minus cost? Do you stop processes so processes don't have to stop? And do you encourage people to highlight problems? Do people solve problems by going to see? Do you focus on the vital few things? Do you try to make value flow? Is standardisation important? Is there always a better way? Some questions to think about practicing. Does everyone understand customer value and how their work activities contribute to providing it? Are the people in the organisation engaged in doing and improving their work? Are they focused on solving problems to improve the flow of value to the customer? My hope is you'll see examples of this underlying thinking across the presentations and the learning sessions over the next 2 days. And I'm sure we're going to see that. So, back in September, we put together the theme for the summit, and we thought our 2024 challenges were still relevant and that we shouldn't change anything. Oh dear. We didn't realise the economic theory would completely turned on its head, that transactional negotiation and the art of the deal could become so topical. But in such unprecedented times, lean is more relevant than ever, particularly when viewed through the lens of John Shuck's Lean Transformation Framework. So please have these dimensions, these 5 questions in mind as you engage with the content over the next 2 days. And remember, problem solving situational. You might not have all of these problems. You might now have some more problems that aren't on this list. And some of them may be more important to you than some of the other ones. So try and think, what problem do you need to solve? What gaps do you need to close? And to get better, guess what? We all have to practice, particularly if we want to be self-reliant in the lean approach.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest lean content.